Good afternoon, fellow Plexers. This video is going out to Phil and anyone else with a Synology NAS who is thinking about gaining more storage space by buying a expansion unit. So both of my models from Synology, my DS1019 Plus and DS1520 Plus, each have an expansion unit, a DX517 connected to it. So to utilize that with Plex server, you really have three options. And I gave Phil all three, and we'll talk about the last one first. And that's how this NAS is set up, and it's not going to be the path for most people. So if I go to Storage Manager, because this is my backup NAS, I chose to set it up from scratch with SHR2 with an expanded volume to the expansion unit. I have 5 12 terabyte Iron Wolf drives in the main unit and 5 8 terabyte drives in the old unit. I've purchased 19 Iron Wolf drives since I started with Plex and 4 terabyte drives on this NAS back in 2019. It's an expensive investment, and the expansion units were throwing more money at the investment to reuse the old hard drives. So because this is a backup NAS and had been reset from scratch, I could use the mismatched drive sizes to create a new volume, span to the expansion unit, and I chose SHR2 to have 2 drive redundancy. And that's the sticking point if you're already using SHR and you want to buy an expansion unit. With 10 drives involved, I don't like the odds of only a 1 drive redundancy in case of a failure, and I much prefer a 2 drive redundancy. And as you can tell, that's still a lot of storage space. I could have gained like 72 or 76 terabytes of space under SHR1, but all I needed was at least what I had on the first NAS or a little bit more to be a backup unit. And again, because this is a backup unit, I'm less concerned about data integrity because I'd have to lose my main data and the backup data for a catastrophic data loss. But I'm not really worried about data loss here. Most people will advise you not to span a volume because of the truthfulness that if the data cable gets disconnected between the two, your data is toast. It's gone and it's not recoverable. But it's a heavy cable. There's 2 thumb screws that screw into both the NAS and the expansion unit on each end. And unless you're living with a toddler who has complete access to your Synology units, or you've got a miscreant that's living with you that you're worried about unplugging the connection, you don't have to worry. It's not like the cable's going to fail just sitting there doing nothing. And in actuality, if somebody wanted to ruin your array, the little drive locks on all the cages won't stop somebody from forcing one open and pulling a drive out. If you pull 2 drives out under a SHR configuration, your data's toast. If you pull 3 drives out under SHR2, your data's toast. So I'm not worried about that cable getting accidentally disconnected. Now, the falsehood is that if you lose power to either one of these individually, you've destroyed your data. Well, all I can tell you is that happened to me, and you have to ask yourself, why would Synology build a system where you could expand to the expansion unit and not have protection? Why would they do that? They may not recommend it as the most safest course for mission critical data, but again, this is only Plex media server data, right? And this is backup. So SHR2 is safe, and I lost the power supply. It just went bad. I bought this NAS in the spring of 2019, and this spring I woke up one morning to emails saying I had an event on this NAS, and when I went down to look at it, the blue power light was blinking, which is like, you don't want to see that, and the power light here was a steady blue. Well, so I quickly thought about my options. Is like, okay, so the power supply must have partially failed because I was still getting some power to this. Or maybe the data cable supplies back-end power. I don't know. All I did is I went to the UPS both were connected to, and I pulled both power cords from the UPS at the same time, ordered a new power brick. When I plugged it in a couple days later, I pressed the power button on this because we know this turns on with the main unit, and that blue light continued to flash for 3 or 4 minutes. The NAS beeped a couple times and it went steady. When I went back upstairs to my desktop computer, I was able to log into DSM, and I had notifications of a unsafe, unhealthy shutdown, and that a data scrub had automatically started. That takes about 4 days to complete on this unit, and it runs quarterly anyway, and it completed without any errors. So my backup media survived with losing the power in this. Now the expansion unit has a built-in power supply, but my guess is the same thing happens, and once you replace the internal power supply, you should be back up and running. So a span volume doesn't scare me, but the odds of 10 drives on one span volume with only SHR does not seem like it's risk adverse. So SHR2 is better. So this is why the third option isn't going to be available to most Synology NAS owners, because you're not going to be able to back up all your data to then create a SHR2 volume to then restore your data. So let's jump into the newer NAS, which has a second volume created on its expansion unit. This is 516 terabyte Iron Wolf Pro drives, and this has my 4 original 4 terabyte Iron Wolf drives purchased in 2019, 3 of them in 2019 for the last one. So this is not data of any consequence. It's just there for testing purposes. It's really not doing anything. So you can check out Space Rex or Will's Space Rex channel at YouTube for how to create the new volume. There's no sense of me ever recreating a video that he makes or that Robbie makes over at NAS Compares. They should be your Synology NAS tutorial videos. I make videos of Plex server that aren't easily found or already made for Plex people. So if I go to File Station, just looking at the shared folder names, you have no idea where any of them are on either volume. So if I go and hover over Docker, you'll see it's Docker at volume 1 with the available free space. If I go to Media PD, that's also volume 1. If I go to Reference, you'll see that's on volume 2. Storage volume 1, Storage 2, volume 2. So I will have to pull this off screen for a second, because part of the creation of a new shared folder will go to a screen that will show your admin account name. So I won't be able to show that, but I'll show you everything you have to do for both a package install of Plex and a Docker container install of Plex to create a new shared media folder on volume 2, and then to either move all your TV shows or all your movies to that to then gain space on the original volume, or to simply set up a new shared media folder on the expanded or the new volume to just start putting new media in. Now the only thing is, this is going to ruin a Star app setup, a trash guide setup, because a proper trash guide setup instructs you on how to achieve atomic moves. So if I go into my test shared media folder on this, you'll see I use sort folders for every type of Plex library, but I also have the typical folder name for the landing site of a trash guide setup. If this is within the same shared media folder, any transfers of the raw media while it's being renamed and structured to actual library folders, appears to be instantaneous. If that landing folder, if this folder, where is it here, was in a different shared folder, well, that's not an instantaneous transfer. That's really a copy and delete to move it. And that takes time. That slows down the operation. So if you have a trash guide set up and you're going to move all your TV show libraries to another volume, that will break atomic moves on that setup. And of course, you'll have to change settings in Sonar to reference the new location, but you'll still have atomic moves if all your movies are on the main volume where they were, and that's where the landing pad is. So on the other option, if you simply start using the second volume for all new media, you can set up Radar and Sonar and Sob and Prowler to use that new location, and you'll also have to move your landing zone to the new volume, and that will achieve atomic moves. So I don't show any of that with any video on my YouTube channel because I don't want copyright strikes. But I do talk about the star apps and Unraid setups because they're so frequently used. You need to know about these options, and atomic moves is very, very important. So I would vote more for simply leaving your original media where it is on the first shared volume, and then just putting new media on the new volume and set up your trash guides to reflect that, to continue those fast atomic moves happening on your system. So, but anyway, we'll show both ways. And it all starts with creating a new shared media folder. So my name is going to be Media PD2, and it's just this simple. Create shared folder. I have to get on a file station and go into control panel to the shared folder applet. So now I create shared folder, and don't forget to do this. Change to the new volume. And I'm just going to go with a simple name that I can't forget because I know Media PD is the other test folder. I'll leave the recycle bin enabled, and this restrict access only means that you have to be the admin to restore a file. So you leave that checked. I'm going to skip encryption, and I'm going to skip this. And now when I get to the confirmed settings, I'll have to pull this off to my other monitor because after a few seconds, it'll switch to the administrator or the user page, and I can't give away my admin name. So I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to click my default user, my admin user, which isn't the default one that Synology sets up. That's been disabled. And I'm going to give the Docker user access, and I'm going to hit apply. So now I can bring it back on screen. So if you're using a package install of Plex, you also have to do this. You'll have to make sure that's highlighted, go to edit and click permissions, but I'm going to take that off screen again because that same local users will show up. And all I did was change local users to system internal users. And you have to find, let's bring this over. You have to give the Plex Media Server shared folder, which is your package install of Plex Server, read-write permissions. So I think I can just save that without giving anything away. Yes, I could. So now I've set this up for accessing it by a container install of Plex, a package install of Plex Server. which I do not have. I do not have that set up on this NAS. Oh, I have one that I could run, but that's not what's running currently. So that's all you do, and now we'll switch to what you need to do for a Docker container install. So I use Portainer to set up this. I follow the Marius hosting container guides. You can't set up Plex with hardware acceleration through Container Manager. You need something like Portainer. So I will go to my containers, and I need to stop my Plex container. So it's called Plex PD, so that's a hint for me. I'll stop it and wait for the notification. Now I'll go to my stacks, and I have two different versions I can spin up. I use this for another example of showing how to roll back your version under a Docker install. So I'll click into this and then the editor, and now I do not have permission to see the new volume, the new shared folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a volume, and let me just copy this to then add down here to then adjust. So we know it's on volume 2. We know it's media PD 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm just going to call this Plex Media 2. Everything to the left, oh, I need to get rid of that also. Everything to the left of the colon is your physical structure. Everything to the right of it is the alias you see once you're in the Plex server settings. So, because most container guides you follow, including Marius, doesn't really explain how to set the paths up based on the directory structure you use, I've set this up two different ways. On my older Synology NAS, the container is set up this way. So there's only the one path line besides the path configuration, and the alias leads to anything in that folder. Well, I've showed how to set up it separately for each library type, even though each of these library sort folders, this part, is in the same shared media folder. So it's just different ways of arriving at the same place, but I wanted to give the new shared media folder, I wanted to give anything in that new shared media folder permission to be seen within Plex server. So if I was setting this container up for just myself without demonstrating YouTube. Oh, sorry, I've got an old phone. Let me shut that off. I haven't factory reset my older Pixel 6 Pro smartphone after buying a new Pixel 8 Pro, and sometimes all the notifications come through at once at that because I haven't reset it. So anyway, this will get me access to the Plex container running, access to the new folder, or at least it should. I fly without a net, so this may not work the first time. So now that that's changed, and actually let's talk about this. This is what gives permission of the container to see things on my NAS. The other step I did for a package install of Plex. So let's update this stack. We'll repull the image and redeploy. And I can't leave this page until it starts, otherwise I'll lose the custom edits I just made. Okay, so it's successfully deployed, so that's a good sign. And I'm wanted on Facebook for some reason. All right, so it's starting. Well, it looks like if I refresh this, let's see if I have access to that server. I do. So now if I refresh this, Well, that really should say running. Let's bring this back in. Okay, so which is right here? Okay, so Portainer's all set. We've started that back up. Let's leave Portainer up to make sure I now have access. So that had to be done for a Docker container install of whether you're moving just some libraries or everything to the new location. So before we complete those steps in DSM, let's just see if I have access. So if I edit this and manage and go to add a folder,
you have a text message,
and browse for media, I now see that alias that I created, Plex Media 2, even though there's nothing there. Now the other paths all led to the library sort folders. So this is good, and we can stay out of this, and now we can deal with DSM. Okay, so we can get rid of Portainer. This is all set now too. And we can go back to DSM. So the first option would be to simply move one type of library to the new folder. So what I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to copy all my TV show libraries over, because I really can't move them. I don't want to lose access until I scan them in as duplicates on the new thing. So let me think here for a second. Okay, yeah, this is safe. I'm just going to copy this and paste it. So this is going to take a little bit, but it's only 1 minute because I don't have much going on. So we can wait that out. And if I open up the file manager on my desktop computer, I'm running Pop! OS, and go to other locations, and I click into this, I now see the new location, and it's got some data in there because things are copying. So none of this is really too hard. And this is the same thing if you were just going to create a new shared folder to put new media into. It's basically the same thing. You just have to give both your package install or a container install access to that new shared folder. All right, so that's easy enough. That's done. So now let's go back to Plex server. So again, this is moving a whole library. So now I'm going to go to my TV show libraries and again manage the library, edit it, and now I'm going to leave this path while I add the new path. So it's Plex Media 2, TV libraries, and it's the main TV sort folder and these same shows. So I'm going to save changes, and Plex is going to scan for everything. And so now if I sort by episode, you'll see I have 60 episodes. I probably should have done this first to confirm how many episodes I had. But now if I go to all and sort by duplicates, I've got 60 duplicate episodes. So doing it this way will preserve any custom metadata edits you've made. If you, let's go back to my regular view. If, say, you've added custom season posters, or just change what was default. Okay, I don't have an option with this show. Let's try this, and I won't spend too much time on this. Okay, so if you had done this previously, this would preserve it under the duplicates too. So now all you have to do is go back in to Manage Library, to the folders, and remove that original path. Now Plex will rescan again. Well, at least on my setting, let's do this. Because the Plex server install on the NAS, whether it's a Docker or a package install, is basically local to the Plex media. I can go to the library settings and I can scan my library automatically and also run a partial scan. And because there's not much media here, I can include a music library in the scan. So any changes that are made, Plex picks up automatically. There is this warning under including the music, and that relates to the I/O notify limit on a Synology NAS. It's someplace over 8,000 folders is the limit. That it's a Linux limit of how many folders can be kept track of for changes. And there is a routine that you can run under DSM that Chuck PA from Plex's forums, a Plex employee, has created to raise that limit. But if you have so many folders that this automatic scanning won't work, just switch to a timed library scan. You don't have to go to great efforts to just scan everything every 2 hours. So anyway, now if we go back, and if we again sort by episodes and look for duplicates, there is none. So at this point, you can pull DSM back in and go to File Station, and on the original location, I could go in and delete this folder that contains those shows, and whatever you've got Synology set up for automatic emptying of the trash, when that happens, that's when you'll gain back the space that these used to take up. So that's really the same theory as if you're setting up everything new under this. You would still point to both libraries, but you'd stay pointing to both libraries for your original media here and any new media on the new volume. So under Plex, under that option, you keep both folders. So now I have to use my other alias to the first folder, and that leads right to the sort folder. So that is Plex TV, and now I find the actual library folder, add it back in, and save the changes. And that keeps a connection to your original media on the first volume and to the new media that's only going to the second volume. And again, that's my recommended setup if you have a star service set up like many of us do. If I go to Container Manager and go to Containers, you'll see all the fun things I'm running. And even though I move Plex to my little NUC running Unraid, all these, let's see, this container, that container, naturally this container has to stay here, and this container had to stay local to the media to achieve those atomic moves. Sometimes people think they're going to just keep their media on the Synology NAS and move everything to a faster unit because they think everything will benefit from it. Well, none of the Trash Guides apps need an iGPU to do their stuff. And breaking atomic moves will just slow everything down. So you'd only move like Plex and Tautuli off. And what's the one container that automatically transcodes your media from H.264 to 265 in order to save space? That container you'd want to move to a faster processor. But then again, its performance will get slowed down because it has to copy things back and forth across the local network instead of being an instantaneous move like bringing in new media. So I know I'm confusing this whole topic by bringing in the trash guide programs, but it's an important issue. If you're running that and you're adding an expansion unit to a Synology NAS, go with option 2, where all new media lands on the new volume. Leave your original media there. You can still keep it monitored in, say, Sonar or Radar if you want. You just add the additional root path to those programs. And that way, if it needs to upgrade a show or a movie, or an episode or a movie, you'll lose atomic moves on that update. But by resetting up your star apps for the new paths, for new acquisitions, you'll keep the atomic moves going there. And again, that would involve adding a landing pad for probably Saab NZBD that most people are using. And again, I just talk about those in my videos. I don't actually show those processes because I don't want to deal with any copyright strikes to my channel. I want my channel to mostly be about Plex support videos by using official Plex support guides. And they do have a support guide for moving a server, but that's lock, stock, and barrel, and not so much moving your storage location. So, Phil and anyone else interested in an expansion unit in Plex, these are your 3 options. And again, the expanded volume really isn't an option, because to have 7, 9, or 10 drives with only SHR protection, to me, is too risky. It's not risky with SHR 2. So thanks for watching, and remember, I'm not a pro YouTuber, but if you've got a Plex problem, I'm happy to help you out. I appreciate all views. Thank you.